to say that the sexual sin was so big, especially in the way of ancestral, having incest with the mother-in-law, is because oftentimes what we even see with witchcraft, that is actually how they maintain their powers. They will sleep with infants, even sometimes these grown men and women, and that is how they will facilitate the powers that was in the bloodline, so that it doesn't just go for naught, right? They want to continue to pass those powers on and whatever the case may be. So to do this was a very detestable thing. And Paul says, turn that man over to Satan. Okay. And it was because they were shameless and they did not follow the ways of the Lord, and they knew better, right? Because this is a church that Paul is writing this letter to. And he mentions at the end of this chapter, he says, listen, it is not our job to judge the world, because God is going to judge the world. In fact, the world is already judged. But as for believers, right, we should be judging believers. We should be correcting believers. We should be making sure that they are held accountable. So I don't want you to think, because as I mentioned before, the name of this podcast episode is Girly Godly Gentle, is to say that we are dismissing the fact that there should definitely be, a stern warning and or ways that we are able to correct our brothers and sisters. But I also want us to understand what we're talking about here, because there is, as the word of God actually talks about, that not all sin leads to death. Okay, which debunks actually the fact that people saying all sin is sin. I don't know how, where, when, and why we have gotten that understanding that all sin is sin. I just gave you an example where it talks about in 1 Corinthians or 2, I think it's 1 Corinthians, that sexual sin, right, is the only sin. Jesus is specifically speaking about the exclusivity of a specific or a certain sin that affects only this temple. And this temple is your suit. This is the tent and the vehicle for you to operate on this realm. Okay, so obviously there's a high ranking priority about that when it comes to what it is that you are supposed to be doing in this temple and who you are supposed to be using this temple with. You should not be perverting this temple with using it with another way that the Lord did not construct. You should not be using this temple to serve yourself in a way that you are, in agreement with the same gender or things of that nature. That's not how this temple was designed. Now, you can do what you want, but then again,